Thoughts on Kansas and Carolina in just a second. Last team to punch their ticket to the Final Four. Kendall Marshall saying before the game, nothing hurts more than not being able to physically help your team, but I'm with them spiritually more now than ever. More problems for Carolina. It's John Henson. He turns his ankle on Thomas Robinson's foot. He'd be treated. He would return to the game. Later in the first half now, Jayhawks down 3. Robinson for 3. Book it. Kansas ties the game at 31. Moments later now, Thomas Robinson in the conversation for Player of the Year. Fantastic drive to the bucket. Part of a 12-2 Kansas run going up by 7. Harrison Barnes comes back for Carolina. Tar Heels down by 5. Next possession now. Stillman White, 7 assists, no turnovers, finds Barnes back door. Carolina down 3. Shot clock winding down. Elijah Johnson forces the turnover all the way for the lay-in. We're tied at 47 at the break. Second half now. Pick it up. Jayhawks up 1. Kevin Young gets the offensive rebound, finds Tyshawn Taylor. And Kansas goes up by 3. Ensuing Carolina possession now. Taylor comes away with the steal and finishes with the dunk. Kansas by 5. Just over 3 to play now. Johnson continues to find the touch from long distance. A huge 3 in a 1-point game. Jayhawks by 4. Moments later now. Withy the rejection, and Tyshawn Taylor. What a career he's had. Ups and downs for sure. Kansas goes by 7. A 12-0 run to finish the game. North Carolina held scoreless in the final 3.5 minutes. A very close game. Kansas pulls away late to win 80-67. Back over to Reese and the guys now for their thoughts.
All right, Ryan Hubert, Davis, Digger Phelps, and Jay Billis here, and the Jayhawks are off to the Final Four for the 14th time in their history. And Ryan mentioned the great closing run, and it came after Harrison Barnes had missed a second free throw that would have tied the game. And from there, North Carolina never really seemed to be comfortable on the offensive end, and they couldn't seem to get the comfort zone in the offense and the good look they wanted.
Well, both teams tightened their defense up in the second half. The first half, both teams scored 47 points. It was tied 47 all at half, and both teams were really getting just about whatever they wanted on the offensive end. But in the second half, I thought both teams played better defensively, but Kansas was the one that could sustain it through the whole 20 minutes of the second half. And I thought it was key when Kansas switched to that triangle in 2. That North Carolina really didn't attack it very well. They didn't get much movement. They weren't getting the ball inside. Harrison Barnes wasn't able to get the ball at all. And I thought that triangle, too, left some people open that really didn't want to shoot it. And it took the folks that Kansas didn't want to shoot, most notably Harrison Barnes and P.J. Harrison, took them out. And I thought that was really key down the stretch.
I thought defensively, Jeff Withy again. He gets 15 points, 8 rebounds, but it's his blocks, his intimidation. And yet they did a great job. Both teams did double teams. They double teamed Robinson when he'd get the ball. Carolina did. Then he double teamed Zeller, whoever got the ball in the post. But the fact was, when I look at one guy, again, the clutch shot, Elijah Johnson, X factor. It was a 1-point game. He hits that 3 with 3 minutes to go. That puts them up 4. They get another situation, come down a fast break, score 2, go up 7. Carolina could never get back on the rhythm of that game. But credit the defense of Jeff Withy, to me, who becomes now, we saw what he did with 10 blocks in the game. Now he's becoming that force in the paint to take the pressure off Thomas Robinson. And, of course, when you look at Tyshawn Taylor, he scores enough. He had some key turnovers himself, but he scores enough here to give him that balance. And that's the difference in this game to me.
I thought Kansas did a great job rebounding the basketball. That was one of the keys. And North Carolina is the best rebounding team in the country. And they out-rebounded North Carolina, and they only allowed North Carolina 8 offensive rebounds. And I thought that was fantastic. You talk about the guard play, that had to improve. Elijah Johnson has been terrific throughout the NCAA tournament. Tyshawn Taylor, sometimes his shots were interesting, some turnovers, but he stepped it up. This was his best game offensively in terms of scoring, rebounding, distributing the basketball. I said for North Carolina to have a chance that Harrison Barnes had to be great. He wasn't great. He was okay. And not only give credit to Travis Relaford. He's an outstanding on-the-ball defender. I didn't think Harrison was aggressive enough. I didn't think he called for the ball. You mentioned, they were 1-point game in the last 3.5 minutes. They didn't score. In that time, you say, give me the ball. The ball comes through me, and I'm going to make a play for my team to get to the Final Four. He had to be great. He wasn't. And it's unfortunate. North Carolina, we talk about Syracuse not being at full strength, but congratulations to this Kansas team. We saw them at the beginning of the year, and to think that they're in the Final Four, what a great job Coach Self has done.
He really did a great job, and Kansas earned this.
Yes.
They earned it throughout the whole season. But it's hard not to look at this and say, what if? You know, what if North Carolina had Kendall Marshall? Because you're watching them play and watching, they were a little loose with the ball, had some turnovers that you go, geez, where'd that come from? And then you start thinking about it. Those guys aren't put in the position to make those passes during the year. Kendall Marshall's got the ball, and they're looking to get open and score. They're thinking about beating their man, running their offense, scoring, instead of, I got to make this pass, or I got to handle this defense, all this stuff. You know, they didn't have to do that all year long. And it is a shame in a way. You mentioned Syracuse not having Fab Melo, and Michigan State not having Brandon Dawson in the NCAA tournament. You know, 3 of the best teams going into this tournament came in not at full strength. But hats off to Kansas. They did a tremendous. If you had said in October that team's going to be in the Final Four, I'm not. You might have raised some eyebrows. And they won the Big 12 again, and get to the final. It's amazing.
We saw him in the Garden in the early part of the season. Thinking him as Kentucky, and I don't think any of us would have imagined they would be headed to New Orleans in the Final Four. But off they go. They will take on Ohio State, a team they played in the regular season when Ohio State didn't have a star. But this time they will. Sullinger will be there. Jayhawks and the Buckeyes will be as well.
Welcome to College Game Day, covered by State Farm.
Red Letter Day on Saturday as Louisville and Ohio State had already advanced to the national semifinals, but it was all about blue on Sunday. 2 spots remaining in the Final Four and 2 of the 3 winningest programs in the history of the sport. Kansas and Carolina head-to-head. No Kendall Marshall, who tweeted, "Nothing hurts more than not being able to physically help your team. With them spiritually, though." First half, John Henson fouled, and as if Tar Heels could use this, the big fella rolls his ankle. Got treatment, returned to the game. Later in the first, Jayhawks down by 3, and Thomas Robinson will knock down the 3, Jay.
Well, Thomas Robinson, he got away with a couple walks before he made a couple hoops, but he was strong all game long, and especially on this drive here, the hoop and the harm to complete the 3-point play. Outstanding first half for Thomas Robinson.
12-2 run. They went up by 7. Reggie Bullock found Harrison Barnes and 1. Carolina down 5. Then Stillman White to Barnes going back door, Hubert.
Yeah, I thought he played really well, made some nice plays in the half-court situation, took care of the basketball. But here they got a turnover in Kansas. When they get out in transition, they're one of the best in the country at finishing.
Elijah Johnson tied the game at 47. Second half, Jayhawks up by 1. Kevin Young will work, get the offensive rebound, and Tyshawn Taylor got the roll. Kansas up by 3. Taylor comes up with the steal. There's an open student athlete. Punch. Kansas up by 5, and here comes Johnson. Jay's huge shot in a 1-point game.
Yeah, coming off that little screen and roll on the side from the left wing, that might have been the biggest bucket of the game.
Whitney blocks a shot on Henson. Forget the fact it was a foul. So was that. And then finally, the third foul they called gave Taylor the bucket in the and 1. And Kansas, in the waning moments, starting to pull away in this game. Stillman White, an ill-advised drive. Whitney slaps it out of there. Travis Relaford, thank you very much. And Bill Self smiling. Self had a little bit of a hurdle in the Elite 8. This was his 7th trip. The previous 6 times just 1 in 5, but this time, rock, chalk, Jayhawk on to New Orleans to the national semifinals for the 2nd time under Bill Self, and Kansas will play in the Final Four. Tyshawn Taylor, 22 points. Thomas Robinson goes 18-9. A victorious day for the Jayhawks over their former coach.
When people doubt you, I know myself personally, I think that's when I perform my best, when somebody doubts me. And, as a team together, we knew that we could do it. But, it took a lot of work. It just wasn't a cakewalk. So, this moment is great to have, but, we just want to finish our business now.
Well, I knew that if I would have backed up, they would have made a couple of extra shots. So I knew I had to be aggressive still. And, if I fouled out, I fouled out. But so I just knew I had to be aggressive and keep on trying to block shots.
Apparently, you still haven't made a 3-pointer in a dome. I'm gonna guess that's not bothering you too much right now.
I don't even care. I don't care one bit. I don't like domes, but you know what? Domes love me, it seemed like, because we won.
These guys did an unbelievable job kind of just staying the course and not playing tight and I kind of had a calm about myself today. I felt good about it, and these guys obviously played at a very, very high level.
Yeah, if they did, you know, a report I read a few moments ago, the further that conversation with Taylor, Tyshawn asked, are we playing in a dome in New Orleans? And they told him, yeah. And he said, oh, man. He doesn't have to worry about the last 307. What a performance by the Jayhawks down the stretch. It was 68-67. Barnes had just missed a free throw, and Carolina didn't score again. Kansas finished on a run.
Well, Kansas did a great job. I thought the triangle in two that Bill Self went to late in the game was really helpful to Kansas's defense.
It results in an 80-67 victory as Roy Williams, without Kendall Marshall, his team fought valiantly but came up short down the stretch.
You hate that for that kid. You hate it for our program, hate it for our team, but Kendall Marshall is all about winning, and it's all about team. And if you've ever watched him play, you realize that he's one of those point guards that cares about his team maybe more than anybody I've ever seen. So you hate it for him.
My faith is the reason I am who I am today. So everything happens for a reason. I don't know why it is. I may question why God put us in this situation, but at the same time, he has a reason for everything. So, I mean, you just got to accept it. Unfortunately, it hurts extremely bad right now. Maybe I'll understand it later, maybe I won't, but, I mean, you just got to go on.
This was a great team, and we had great goals, and don't feel like we quite achieved them, but played as hard as we could, and just came up a little bit short.
It was a great basketball game, like I say, for about 34, 35 minutes, and the last 4 or 5 minutes, they played much, much better than we did, and their coach coached much better than I did. It was a game of runs, and we didn't answer the last one.
Williams falls to 0-2 against his former school. North Carolina hasn't been a great three-point shooting team all year. In tournament play, their 2 for 17 performance against Kansas on Saturday by percentage, their second worst performance in tournament play. In 1992, the Tar Heels went 0 for 6 against Alabama. Take a guess as to who squeezed off all 6 of those three-pointers.
Me.
You did. You spent your day putting it on the deck and driving right by Latrell Sprewell. You put 16 on his noggin in the win.
I wouldn't say that, but we did get the win.
I would say that. You put 16 on it. They won. Tar Heels could not emerge victorious against Kansas. This time, North Carolina's season is over. Kansas is off to the Final Four. The Elite Eight have been the heartbreak hurdle for Bill Self. So many times the Jayhawks had stumbled before reaching the Final Four, but now in the 7th try, Self makes it for the second time. Perhaps an unlikely trip to the Final Four this time as Dick Vitale joins us. Dick, Jayhawks beat North Carolina. They finished strong, and Self did a marvelous coaching job with largely a retooled team.
I'll tell you one thing, Reese. He was my National Coach of the Year for the job he did this year, losing 4 starters, including the great Morris twins as well. His big three, I thought, responded big time against North Carolina. When you think about Withey blocking shots and going 5 for 5, you think about Thomas Robinson with another double-double, and Tyshawn Taylor, who really was missing in the tournament, came up big, 22 big points. But the biggest shot of the whole afternoon for them was certainly the shot by Elijah Johnson when he made that big three, and it was 68-67, and it was no turning back. They ripped off and ultimately won 80-67. I thought that shot was the biggest shot of the game.
No question. I thought so too, Dick. North Carolina, though, I was really impressed. They fought valiantly without Kendall Marshall in there. What impact, what was the biggest detriment to the Tar Heels not having their leader on the floor?
You know, Reese, they got great leadership. We found out why Roy Williams is a Hall of Famer. I mean, he had those kids believing that they could play without Marshall. And, you know, White did what people really, he's getting criticized a little bit on Twitter. I can't believe it. The kid didn't have a turnover, basically, and he did what you would expect for a guy that didn't play a whole lot of minutes. But they really fought so hard. The difference is, obviously, with Marshall, he creates offense with his incredible penetration ability and his great vision and his instincts in passing the ball. His effectiveness really elevates the game of Barnes, Zeller, and Henson. And without that guy passing the rock and dumping it off for layups, they didn't have that opportunity. Certainly a different team. You really got to feel bad for the North Carolina faithful not having a full cast, just like Syracuse not having Fab Melo.
It is one of those difficult things in tournament history that pops up from time to time. We'll hear more from Dick Vitale a little bit later on. And you've heard from Hubert Davis and Jay Billis already. And, you know, guys, you look at this and look, Dick mentioned some criticism of Stillman White's getting. Guy had 13 assists, no turnovers in 2 games. Is he Kendall Marshall? Of course he's not. But he fought hard and he played pretty well. I don't think it was just him. But clearly, North Carolina was a different team, it seemed, particularly in the half court without Kendall Marshall. And you'd be being disingenuous if you didn't say it had a big impact on the game.
It changed everybody's roles. Instead of worrying about getting open, running the floor, doing what you normally do, and Kendall Marshall bringing the ball up, having it in his hands all the time, there were times when North Carolina would turn the ball over, and you'd say, geez, I haven't seen him do that all year. Well, he's never had to do it. North Carolina didn't have to make that many passes during the course of the year. Marshall usually had the ball in his hands. And, you know, when they would come off that shuffle cut and then set a double down for Harrison Barnes, you know, he's catching the ball coming off an action, and he's got something to do with it when he catches it, instead of catching it and then having to go essentially against a set defense. You know, I thought North Carolina played really well. And they played, as Roy Williams said, they played 35 minutes really well. I thought they got a little bit fatigued mentally because of all that they had to do extra with Kendall Marshall out of there. I do believe if Kendall Marshall played, it would have been a different game. But you know what? He didn't play, and Kansas took advantage of it, and Kansas was terrific.
Yeah, they did. They really stepped up. And I thought where they really stepped up is they did an excellent job rebounding the basketball. They had to. North Carolina's the best rebounding team in the country. They do an excellent job of getting second chance opportunities. They were able to keep North Carolina off the offensive boards. Only 8 offensive rebounds for them. You know, we talked about guard play. Tyshawn Taylor had to step up. He's been struggling, particularly on the offensive end during the NCAA tournament. At times, he took questionable shots and, you know, turned the ball over. But he stepped up in terms of points, rebounds, and assists. I thought he played well. Elijah Johnson hit that big 3-point jump shot in the latter part of the game. And I thought Travis Relaford had to play good defense on Harrison Barnes. He's a great on-the-ball defender. You know, at the beginning of the game, I said for North Carolina to have a chance, Harrison Barnes had to be great. He was good, but he wasn't great. And he had to be great because he was the one guy for North Carolina in the half court that had the ability to create his own shot and also make shots. And he just didn't do it. And I credit Travis Relaford because he's a great on-the-ball defender, but I don't think Harrison Barnes was aggressive enough. They didn't score the last 3.5 minutes of the game. In that type of moment, you tell the point guard, give me the basketball. We're going to lose or win with the ball in my hands. And he didn't do that. And I don't think he was aggressive enough, particularly towards the end of the game.
And I do think that triangle, too, that Bill Self threw on North Carolina had an effect. It got him to stand around a little bit. And all of a sudden, you had shots open for guys that you might not have wanted as the primary shooter. And Relaford was on Harrison Barnes, and he couldn't find openings. I thought that was a really good strategic move by Bill Self, and it paid off big for him.
He's done it twice in the tournament now. They changed the game a little bit against Purdue, going triangle and 2 against them, too.
When Hummel was killing him.
Yeah. It was Thomas Robinson said he was going to get 40 on me, you know, until they changed up a little bit. As for Self and the coaching job that he's done this year with Kansas, last year's team was expected to go to the Final Four. Now they've retooled the roster guys who weren't as big of contributors last year, like Thomas Robinson, turns out to be Player of the Year type candidate. What does it say about the job that Self has done, getting this team to the Final Four?
Well, I think everybody knows that Bill Self is a Hall of Fame coach. I think he's going to be in the Naismith Hall of Fame before he's all done. The job that he did at Oral Roberts, the job he did at Tulsa, Illinois, I mean, he's done a great job wherever he's been, including at Kansas. But this team is a different one than he's had. I think it's probably, and this sounds disrespectful, I don't mean it, it's probably the least talented team he's had since he's been at Kansas, and he gets it to the Final Four. And you remember, this sticks out in my mind for some reason. When we were at Missouri for game day, and Missouri made that great comeback to beat Kansas, and we were walking out just about the same time as the Kansas team, and Tyshawn Taylor couldn't even walk down the hall. He had to use the wall to hold him up. He was so devastated after that game. They not only bounced back from that to win the Big 12, they made it to the Final Four. And if you had said at the beginning of the year that team was going to make the Final Four, it would have raised your eyebrows a little bit. You said, I don't know. It's an amazing job, and not only by Coach Self, by those players. An amazing job.
Yeah, remember we saw in their second game of the season against Kentucky. They looked nothing, long season, looked nothing like a Final Four team that night.
No, they didn't. And when I look at this Kansas team, what really impresses me is guys getting an opportunity and guys developing. You look at Tyshawn Taylor at the point guard position, that struggled throughout his career in terms of being consistent. And this year, I think he's been lights out. Always a great defensive player, but making better decisions on the point guard, aggressive on the offensive end. And how about Thomas Robinson? He's been sitting a bench behind Marcus and Markieff Morris, gets an opportunity, and he's right there in terms of Player of the Year with Anthony Davis. Jeff Withey sitting a bench, getting an opportunity, and he's been probably the biggest factor in terms of him being able to rebound, block, alter shots. his chemistry with him and also Thomas Robinson, I think, has put Kansas in a position to possibly win a national championship. Seeing kids develop over the year, getting an opportunity, not whining and complaining and saying, hey, I want to transfer, I'm not getting the time. They waited their time, got their opportunity, and they all have really stepped up.
And so for the 14th time in their long and storied history, Kansas is going to the Final Four. The Jayhawks rocking and chalking their way all the way to the Big East. When College Game Day scoreboard rolls on, I think everyone expected that Kentucky would make it there, and boy, did Big Blue make a statement against Baylor early.